Now it just said I don't have permission to live stream. Oh, gotta love it. Oh, we've got people. Okay, let's. Oh, that sucks. Let's try this. Good afternoon, everybody who's here and watching us.
Hi.
Watch Lisa Dunn have another meltdown with technology. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Well, in a perfect world. How are we today?
Awesome.
We are just awesome. We're making our travel plans for CAR. I'm trying to multitask at the same time that I talk, which for me, I can barely chew gum and walk at the same time. So, anywho, let's see. So, what are we going to talk about today, Lori? The state of the world,
No, we did that last time.
but it's changed. We've had a stock market meltdown. This is just a really interesting time. And I'm having a hard time thinking about what to say when counseling clients right now because of all of the uncertainty. And, I don't know. Is there anything that you're feeling, thinking, doing out there with when people say, what's happening with the market?
Well, are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Um,
I'm buying a little time over here.
okay. Thanks for the heads up. It depends who it is. I mean, I went out to breakfast this morning with a past colleague, a great friend, someone who has been a mentor to me for nearly 2 decades. And he's in the real estate space, but he's not in like, he doesn't do what we do. And so, he asked that question, what are you seeing in the California market? And, I kind of had to laugh because I'm like, well, you talk to some agents and there's nothing happening. They're working, nothing's happening. Clients are backing out and or changing their minds. And then I talked to another group of people who are having an amazing year and they just keep on getting listings. So I'm like, honestly, don't know. I don't know. I don't know that there's any formula for it, for any one agent to be more active. I don't want to say successful, but more active than others right now. But when it comes to like my family and friends who are asking, friends not in the business, um, if when they're asking about the market and alluding to the fact that they're not sure if they should make decisions related to their real estate needs or goals, just listening to them and kind of seeing like what's the root reason they're considering anything if they genuinely are, and trying to kind of go back to those conversations we had at the beginning of the pandemic, at the beginning of the mortgage meltdown. Like, it can feel like the world has ended and we don't know what to do. But I think it always goes back to, have the conversation with your client and figure out what are their goals, what are their needs. If they need to do something today, then there's a way. If they don't need to do something today, what is the reason they're considering it? And just really, I think it's a very personal conversation. I don't think there is any one script or standardized dialogue to cover with your clients. But I have been telling agents in the business really know your market, really know the data in your market, because a lot of people are still panicking about how long things are taking to sell. And that's our reality right now. And
Yeah.
it's not long, it's just longer than it had been. And it's still very healthy. So, days on market, but I don't know. I'm trying to listen more to the economists who are the experts in the data so I can have a better understanding. I did that at the start of the pandemic because that to me is an important component in having those conversations. If you don't know the data, if you don't know how certain things impact other things, you're not going to be able to speak to it.
Absolutely. And, I mean, that's where it's been really interesting. I've been trying to keep up with different people in the industry trying to see, what their takes are. And, it's just hard when nobody's really, what the heck was that?
I don't know. I don't know. My screen is just glitching and then freezing, but
I
I'm
was
not
thinking,
gonna.
I feel like I'm having like some kind of eye test with
I
you.
know. I
Better
looked down
now
for a
or
second
better
and then
now?
it's because I looked down for a second at my phone.
No, I saw the glitch here. I mean, anyhow, but it's a glitchy kind of day. But yeah, it's just weird because we were at an event last week with the local LGBTQ Alliance, and we were talking with an agent there, and one of the gentlemen was saying, "Yeah, we're getting a whole bunch of listings. They're not going anywhere, but we're getting a whole bunch of listings." And I'm like, "Well, that's an interesting observation because I haven't really heard that." Um, but there's things that people are talking about, things that you're reading in the news. I saw something today regarding the Canadian snowbirds in Palm Springs,
Yeah, I
saying,
saw that.
"Well, we've had enough. We don't feel welcome here, so we're not coming back." Besides their tourist dollars being missed, and them not coming to vacation, they're saying that they're going to be selling their properties. And so I talked to a friend of mine who does business out there in the desert area this morning, and I said, "Hey, are you seeing any of this?" And she's like, "Well, I haven't really seen it, but I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that that's not happening out here." So, it's going to be a really interesting time, especially in the areas that are kind of foreign market heavy, um, where we have a lot of, second homes, for, people don't realize that Canada is the country that buys the most real estate in the United States. So, it's Canadian, folks that want to own property here. And a lot of them are like, "You guys aren't being very nice to us right now." And, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I think we're going to see more of that in the vacation markets than we're going to see in the normal markets. But it's just something kind of to be aware of. And how is that going to play out? Because gotta love the media. One guy is upside down, on his house in Florida, and that means the market's going to crash. When you get onto YouTube and start listening to all of the crazy monkey business going on there. Um, so, if a Canadian tourist leaves Palm Springs, does that mean, we're having a crash? You gotta parse out your news carefully. And I
That
think
sounded
that
like a setup to a joke, to be honest.
I know it kind of does. Kind of does. It's just called misinformation, being aware of a lot of misinformation. Educate. I think the thing is you got to educate yourself and know what's going on because your clients are getting information from all over the place. And if they go onto YouTube, there's people that have been on YouTube for years, constantly predicting a market crash. And it's like, I don't think that's happened, and I don't think it's going to happen. And, a housing market crash is completely different than what the stock market's doing. The stock market, who knows what the stock market's doing? Um, but, the worst thing that could happen is we could get more inventory. If things got bad, rates would go down and buyers could maybe buy some places and they'd have a few more places to choose from. Oh, I think that would be called a normal market as long as everybody's feeling good about doing it. I think our biggest issue right now is consumer sentiment. And are you feeling confident to go forward with a purchase? And I
Yeah,
think,
I mean, I completely agree with all that. I think that we need to be educated by reputable sources. So I don't want to say don't get your info from social media because we know a lot of reputable sources who put their stuff on social media, but you've got to use reputable sources. And I was listening to a Housing Wire podcast with Logan last week, and he was talking about a chart that went viral on one or all of the platforms regarding foreclosures. And it was a multifamily chart, but it was positioned as a residential chart. And he's like, these idiots, who are out there. I don't think he used the word idiots, but these
oh,
idiots
he
who are out
probably
there.
did.
I think he probably used something worse than that, but
Could be. Could
But
be.
you listen to him and you're just like, yeah, so many people, and it's not just consumers, it's agents as well, are listening to these people who really are not data analysts. They're not looking at all the details of the story. And so you've got to look for someone reputable. You know, NAR is reputable. You've got Lawrence Yun, Dr. Jessica Lautz, you know, they put out great stuff. Logan puts out great stuff through Housing Wire and I think his own sources. Stephen Thomas puts out great information. Jordan Levine and the team at CAR put out great information. Our clients are seeing those headlines. I mean, I have friends who are not in the business who say, "Oh my God, did you see it?" They'll send me articles, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's break this down. Let me punch holes in it." And I can only do that because I know the business and I know the reputable sources. So get the information, but get it from reputable sources.
I'm going to ask you to carry the show for a minute because something's making a noise and I got to go see what it is.
Oh my God. Okay, go.
Okay, I'll be right
Domination.
back.
Oh, great. I love it when she does that to me. After I just finish going on and on about something, now I've got to come up with content to fill. Um, Yeah, so reputable sources. Make sure that you're using a reputable source so you can speak knowledgeably. And reach out to your lender friends and ask them what are they seeing? What's the impact of anything related to the rates and how are the mortgage applications? All of that information is useful information for us. And so let's see, what else can I talk about? I've had a lot of questions lately about the new seller option for marketing and the NAR rule, the modification to the clear cooperation policy. And so at this point in time, we know that it's an available option. Here in California, we haven't seen any specific direction yet on what changes will be made to the largest MLS in the state, CRMLS. My guess is going to be that CRMLS will collaborate with CAR and discuss what needs to be changed on the listing agreement, talking about the new modification of CCP, what needs to be changed on the listing agreement and or any other document. And those form releases are in June. So my guess is going to be we'll start hearing things in May for the plan, and then in June it will be implemented. So potentially, well, definitely new language in either the listing agreement or another form, and the option in the MLS. So if you're wondering, okay, it's effective now, what do we do? We don't do anything right now. And take a look at some of the industry news on that and really analyze your business. Not everybody needs to use this new option. So just because it's available doesn't mean we're all changing our way of practicing. They might be changing the MLSA, but they intentionally tried, that was a comment in the chat, they intentionally tried not to have decision making in the MLSA in that revised version of it. So I think there will be information there, but I don't think that will be where the seller makes that choice. I'm guessing that's going to be in the listing agreement. And then the technical changes that need to happen in the MLS, I would anticipate, hope that that's coordinated with the forms release. So although it's in effect now, implementation is required by the end of September. And so my guess is going to be that it'll happen in June in California.
Well, I went and took care of whatever was going on in my kitchen.
Okay. All right. Well, we finished off the topic of reputable sources, and then I jumped into the seller option related to CCP. But I mean, main point on that one too is this isn't a change we all have to make. And speculation is the majority of the agents are not going to use this new option because that's not the type of clientele that we don't typically work with the type of clientele that might want that option. And if you do, then great, you have this option. If you want to consider it as a new way of doing your business, then it's available. But, you know, always keep in mind what is in the best interest of the seller.
Yeah, that's an important thing to remember nowadays. And, again, that's a lot of chatter out there too. And it's interesting to read, the different takes on it, the pros and the cons. And I think it's, somebody had given the advice, I don't know who it was, is, before you start talking to somebody about whatever, you need to be able to argue their position as well as argue your own. And so I think it's really interesting seeing the conversations going online regarding that, um, with, different companies doing different things. And we're just going to leave that at that. But, it's like, yeah, you can understand it, but is what's best for the seller? We got to do what's best for the seller. And
Yes.
if that's what's best for the seller, then that's great. But the bulk of the sellers, no. We need to get their stuff out there exposed to the masses.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, heavens. Yeah. And I heard something interesting. There was a webinar going on that I found out it's going to be recorded so I can go back onto it and get caught up on what I did miss, that CAR was doing about homeowners associations, because that's kind of like the hot ticket. And actually, it was, now that I kind of stepped away from it, there was some interesting information there because it was an attorney that works with the property management companies, which in our world, they're more of the enemy than they are the ally, shall I say, when you're in a transaction. If I have to reference it in such a way, they're more adversarial, for getting things done. And
Are you
it
talking
was
about the
actually
attorneys or the HI company?
both.
Or the property managers?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to listen to the gentleman, and it's going to be released tomorrow on CAR as a recording, I think, in the legal thing. I'm sure, it'll be out there in the internet somewhere. Check your email box. But, for current stuff, it was kind of interesting to listen to him and talk about the different kinds of properties and the things that are happening and the ages of condos that are having more issues than others. And it's not because of the age and they're falling apart. Granted, that probably doesn't help, but it was, any condo complex that is 10 years old or less, 10 years or younger, they don't seem to have too many issues going on right now because they're new, they're still, they kind of were built in kind of today's environment. Their balconies are probably all good, staircases are probably all good, and they don't have the issues like the older condos do. And, those are the ones that you really kind of have to do your due diligence on. And I thought that that was kind of an interesting thing because I've never thought about that like that before, because they are older and their board of directors is probably kind of like, shall I say, living in the past a little bit. I know I've ran into that myself, where it's like you don't really have a grasp on the concepts that are going on here, do you, Mr. or Miss Director? On these HOA boards. But it's a good listen if you're not familiar with the situations. For some reason, I'm like some kind of weird condo nerd. Don't know why, but it's just kind of something that I'm into. And so a lot of the stuff he was talking about, I was well aware of. But I thought it was just really interesting how he was the first person I've ever heard say to a group of realtors, yes, document and transfer fees are the profit centers for property management companies. So it was like, hey, our worst nightmare was confirmed. And it was interesting listening to him talk about the proposed law that I guess are saying that property management companies have to have a California broker license, which is legislation that's floating around out there. So I guess maybe we'll hear more about that. I know when we were at our last CAR meetings, we were behind that. I myself, and this is my own personal opinion, is I don't think it matters at all whether they have California real estate broker's license. I think the Department of Real Estate needs to set up a special certification for HOA property management companies, because what we do for real estate is not exactly the same as what they do, because we don't work with the board of directors. They're having to manage a volunteer board. I don't know. What do you think about that? Kind of a weird tangent to go off on right now, but it's just making me think.
Yeah, I don't specifically recall hearing about it, so, I would try to I would say, what problem are we trying to solve? And is that the solution? I don't know. I mean, it depends what problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah. And I don't see any problem that can be solved by having a real estate license. I think you should have more of an accounting background or a legal background or something like that if you're going to be giving advice to a volunteer board on what to do for reserves, what to do to be in line with the laws regarding the balcony situation. What are you, what do you know about deferred maintenance? So, what do you know about insurance? I mean, it's been really kind of an interesting period. It's nice to see that this is getting the attention it deserves due to the number of condominiums we have in California. And it's a huge chunk of the market. But there was one thing that the guy said that kind of really bothered me, and it was regarding insurance, and that, oh well, they can't get master insurance policies, so they'll have to just be sold on a cash basis. Eh, I'll go pick three up for my kids so everybody can have a home. And then when they figure out the insurance later, I'll go, refinance them and get some loans. I'm like, wait a minute, what? How can this possibly be good for the potential homeowners in the state of California?
Yeah, that's a bizarre statement. Because
Yeah.
one, I mean, condos are typically have often been the entry level. So a lot of
Hmm.
entry level are not going to have cash. And two, why are we promoting don't have insurance?
I know. I actually, that was when I said, "Hey, Lori, I can get on." Because I was like, I don't know where this is going, but I don't really like it right now. And now that I'm kind of sitting back and digesting it, it's like that was an odd thing to say, because that's the problem. That's a problem right there. Is is this a good thing, letting things be cash only or non-QM loans because we have underinsured condominium complexes? I would think that the right thing to do is give your sellers the choice of what it is, or not your sellers, your homeowners the choice of what do they want to do to rectify this problem. If they think that, going to a cash sale basis is the thing to do, okay, then let them do it, because they're the ones that are making the decisions to um, change the value of their homes, because that would affect their home. If they want to see about changing their CC&Rs where they can get the single family attached insurance, which is a coordinated effort that needs an attorney, that, it can be done, and it's being done by a lot of HOAs. But people are, the board of directors will say, no, nobody ever responds to our ballots in our elections, so why would they respond to this? Well, again, what do the homeowners say? And I just think it's really kind of an interesting thing how people that are involved in the management of these condos are just making arbitrary decisions themselves, and to hear an attorney that gives advice to property management companies, just let it go to a cash basis. Oh, I forgot the third option, raising the monthly assessments to cover the extremely high insurance bill that they're going to be paying. But then again, we're all going to be paying very high insurance bills, aren't we? It's coming down the pipe. So, I just found that really odd that they're not giving the homeowners, they're not giving the homeowners the choices that the homeowners should have put before them.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because the house I own in Anaheim Hills is a single family residence attached. It's attached to one other property and we have an HOA, but the HOA really doesn't have anything to do with our properties other than, exterior architectural, and we pay a massive water bill for all the land right outside of the community. And so I get a monthly newsletter emailed to me, and I don't live there. I get it emailed to me, and they never talk about any decision making. It's always, don't forget to get your architectural designs done, and oh, we're doing this contest, and oh, um, yard sales can only be done on these 4 days a year, and hey, we're gonna have the goats come in and eat up the grass so we can hopefully lower the water bills. And, that's it. And then last week I got a ballot in the mail. Like they didn't even put in the latest newsletter, look for the ballot and please turn it in. So it is interesting to me how, like, as a homeowner in a homeowners association, you really have no idea. I really have no idea what decisions are being made for that community. And there's, like I said, there's not a lot that they are involved in with us, but still, they could have even at least put in the election into
Yeah,
a newsletter.
that's a little shabby that they didn't even bring that up because
Yeah.
everybody gets it and just throws it in their trash can, and there's election law that the state of California and the Davis Sterling Act, I think I got that right, require them to do. And, if you don't tell people be on the lookout for these ballots, then what are they going to do with them? They're just going to chuck them. And, I recently had something happen in my homeowners association. And again, it's single family homes. It's, the Oso Greenbelt, HOA. And, I bought this house not realizing that there was an HOA, because if you looked at the neighborhood, you really wouldn't think that there was an HOA. And we found that out when my next door neighbor parked his junker truck in front of my house for 3 months and nobody cared.
Wait, you didn't find out when you were purchasing it?
Well, we did, but again, like anybody else, hey, the worst built home is going to be the one from the contractor. You don't want the roof done by the roofer who owns the home. I'm looking at it going, everything's cool. Well, because I figured it's just paying for, the green belt. Oh, so green belt, what are they paying for? Green belt. And they had rules and everything, but they're very loosely followed. And I got something in the mail, and I've been in my house now for 10 years and I really haven't had any problems because I just realized they don't do anything. And then we got a change mailed to us saying, okay, we made these changes to the CC&Rs. And the thing that was interesting is they were restrictive, very restrictive regarding RVs, RV access, parking of cars, blah, 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 to the point that they were almost the same verbiage where I had a buyer get out of a transaction because of what he was seeing in the neighborhood was good, but the verbiage in the CC&R said everything that was going on in the neighborhood was against the rules. So he's like, screw this, because nobody can tell me whether I'm going to get, I want to bring my RV in. You're going to see it above the fence line, but the CC&R say you can't see an RV, over the fence line. Your fence has to be high enough. And he said, screw this, I'm not buying the house. Well, the words we got were pretty much exactly the same as what he got. And I'm like, we got people with RVs all over the place in here. I'm putting in an RV access whenever I get around to doing my landscaping redone, to improve the value of my home. But am I going to put up a 12-foot fence? Absolutely not. I mean, it's just ridiculous because they've never enforced any rules now. Now they have a whole bunch of more rules that they want to enforce. I'm waiting for my neighbor 3 doors down to have his, two junker station wagons from the 1970s, with cobwebs all over them. I was like, come, give him a violation. Somebody, will you please? It's like they're just they just send out rules, and I don't remember seeing anything asking for comments from homeowners regarding the changes in the CC&Rs. Now, did it get round filed? Maybe, but it's like, I'm sure they did not have a quorum. I'm sure that it's like, and who's going to go enforce these rules, huh?
Yeah, my HOA company is in another city an hour away. So I
Hmm.
guess unless a neighbor complains, there's going to be nothing.
Yeah. I've never seen anybody come and look at it. They'd send me a letter if anybody was going to get a letter. It's like, come on, guys. If you're going to have the rules, great, but don't make restrictive rules that are going to scare people away from buying properties. I mean, to be able to buy a single story home in Mission Viejo with RV access. I see, I know some, and Pam are in here. You tell me what that's worth. And then to say, oh, well, no, you're going to have to build this huge fence. It would probably be taller than my house. Don't know. But, it's interesting. It's just interesting how there's this disconnect between HOAs, property management companies, and HOA board of directors and the actual homeowners. And I think we're really seeing it in the condo situation. Granted, you and I both have single family home issues. But to hear like they don't care. They don't care if there's no insurance. People will be able to go out and buy. I don't know a whole bunch of people who can go out and buy cash. Do you?
No, no, they don't.
Only investors.
Yeah,
And if they're
expensive.
investors, they're going to run the rental rate up too high for anybody to get an FHA loan, or even a conventional may start looking sideways at it if. So that's not going to help.
Well, plus a lot of HOAs have limitations on how many investors can own.
Yeah. And if they don't, the lending aspect does. And something else he said that was interesting was that HOA management companies have no legal obligation to complete the homeowners association questionnaire that the lenders send in. And he said, if you want them to do it, tell them you'll pay them. Wait a minute, what?
Hmm. I wonder how well vetted this person was.
He is supposedly a highly regarded attorney. But it's got to make you think. We hope people are getting good advice, and are they getting good advice? I mean, I'm watching a neighborhood go down in flames. Um, I just figuratively, not literally, due to the fact that they're underinsured, and the HOA directors have no idea what, they don't want to raise the assessments, so they just rather have no insurance or inadequate insurance. And what is their fiduciary duties to these, that these directors have towards the homeowners in the association?
Yeah, I mean, they're directors, they're officers of the corporation, but HOAs have no governing body to implement anything. So they're really on their own to do what they want.
Well, this will be a story to keep an eye on as it unfolds, because it's finally gaining the traction it needs to gain, so our association can do something, because it is a statewide problem. I wouldn't say it is a national problem, but it's definitely a California problem. Every state has their own version of whatever condo monkey business that they're having. I'm sure Florida is probably ground zero for that, but to sit here and advocate for more housing while we have people actively making properties unable to get a loan on. And we're seeing that now with different articles coming out from reputable sources, that there's a blacklist of condo complexes that the conventional lenders will not lend on. And it's kind of funny, I went through this little rabbit hole, clicking all the links in the
Yeah,
story.
you can't find an actual list.
There's no list.
I did the same thing, and I don't normally do that, but I was like curious if,
I feel so much better hearing, because I thought it was me. I'm like, why can't I find this?
and now to be fair, I might have spent 10 minutes. I don't know how long you spent, but I didn't go
Maybe
that far.
15. Yeah, but that's still, you should be able to find a link
Yeah,
to
to
this
a list.
list of places.
I think I eventually got to a spot where you could enter information, but if you don't enter it right, nothing's going to pull up. I tried multiple things, nothing was rendering from the search I was trying, so I gave up.
Yeah. And it's sad because as a listing agent, you should know what the seller's options are for a sale
Yeah.
because you have to show your value in today's market. And one of the things is knowing the neighborhood that if you're going to list a home in that neighborhood and it's a condominium, I mean, I'm, not to say people shouldn't list outside their little neighborhood or whatever. If you're going to do the homework and tell your sellers they got to get this documentation anyhow. And yeah, if the place takes 90 days to sell or whatever, yeah, you may be having to refresh the documentation, which personally I think is a joke anyhow. But like they said, documentation's a profit center. So I mean, we've got to start educating people because I have harped on this one neighborhood. It breaks my heart to see what happened in there, and I think they've had 5 properties go on the market. Only one is closed. Um, no, I take that back. In the past year, I think 2 have closed. One was a VA and one was an FHA. Um, and the property management company screwed up and somebody told him that there was not a VA approval, and this track had been VA approved since 1993. And the management company obviously didn't know how to check, and they submitted for a VA approval, and it was turned down. Now they lost their VA approval. And it's like you have one financing option, and that's FHA right now. And if FHA looks at it, the lender who's, underwriting the loan, because FHA is not going to look at it unless the lender brings it to their attention of the underinsurance and various other things. That's their lifeline right now. And, I'm just waiting for their management company to screw that one up.
Hmm.
So it's an interesting world. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
hmm. So what
Hmm.
else is happening out there in real estate land, Lori?
Yeah, I think we need something that's a little more uplifting.
Kind of hard right now.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about events that are coming up. We have a lot of fair housing events coming up.
It's Fair Housing Month.
Yes, it is Fair Housing Month. So we have CAR's Fair Housing Day is Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 15th in Long Beach. We can always put the link, and by that I mean Lisa can put the link.
When I move the recording over to Facebook, I'll put all of the links that we discuss as I write them down into the comments there. So,
I mean, I can pull them and send them to you, so you only have to do part of the work. But that's the CAR Fair Housing Day. That is the 3rd or 4th year they've done it. Unfortunately, I've not been able to attend them, but I know Lisa has, and she has raved about them. So I'm able to attend this year. Looking
yeah.
forward to that. There's also a fundraiser that night. It is the shit
Casino night, H&M
casino night.
Casino night. And
Yeah,
I'm
I'm like,
so
if we just kept
disappointed.
talking about FHA, I'm like, it's not FHA, Lori. What is it? HA
And
Housing
I don't get to
Affordability
go
Fund.
this year because I'm on dog patrol. My son is gallivanting around Europe, and I have to take care of the dog.
Okay. Well, that's a
If I like my
good
house,
problem to have.
I need to come back.
And then we have the um, RE Events. That is an affiliate company through Citrus Valley Association. Their event is online, and many associations are sponsors for it, which means you get access to it. That is on the 17th, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So we've got that coming up, so we can include the link for that. What else we have coming up? We have a OCR one as well.
We
Okay.
do, and I'm just checking on the date on that. That is the Orange County Realtors Fair Housing Day Forum. We're going to have speakers from CAR, DeAnthony Nelson and Meena Patel, and we're going to be talking about different things that are going on out there in fair housing land. And it's going to be in person at our Fountain Valley office. We will serve you food if you choose to join us because we all know realtors love a free sandwich. So,
I'll perpetuate that myth.
it's the truth. And which actually, it's the same with anybody. We say it about realtors, but really, you want people to show up, you feed them. It doesn't
The
matter
right
who
thing
you
to
are.
do.
Yeah, it's
Okay, what day is that on?
21st.
Okay, thank you.
21st
I was trying to find it
at,
on my calendar. Yes, there it is.
yes, 21st at, let's see, 1 p.m.
1 to 3. Great. So
Yeah,
we've got a CAR event, a RE
our event,
event,
real estate
bar.
events event.
We have OCR. There was an NAR one last week. I hopped on. Unfortunately, I had to hop on like 40 minutes late, so I didn't get to watch much of that. And I think they have another one coming up. And then we leave for CAR Monday the 28th. So
Monday the 28th. Some people will be coming in that weekend for Women's Council. Some people will be going in for CAR Leadership Academy and CREPAC and Impact and all those important decision-making committees. And the rest of us will be showing up on the 28th, and we're there till Friday. We're going to be stomping all over the Capitol. This should be fun. Uh,
well, not actually on the Capitol, in the city. We can't go to the Capitol.
well, I don't know. We run around.
Yeah, but we don't get to do the tour anymore because they're still under construction. So we might
Oh,
not
that's
get
right.
into the Capitol building.
But we have a street party.
Legislative Day, where we will be in the convention center, and there'll be probably like 4,000 realtors there. So that'll be amazing. And we'll have, I haven't seen anything that has the guest speakers, but we often have legislators. We've had the governor, different governors present. So that's always very inspiring. That's, when we talk about the advocacy, that's the main event. That's us up there in force. I mean, certainly there's the team from CAR who's actually going and lobbying and presenting, our position on different bills and introducing bills to finding legislators to introduce bills on our behalf. But that's when we're up there in force. And if you haven't been, it's really powerful. That's when you realize we are the only trade group that advocates for housing. And so it's pretty incredible.
And it's one of those things too that once you go and once you see what happens, you can tell your clients, we're the only people that are out here fighting for you to be able to keep your mortgage interest deductions, to be able to stop point of sale mandates, to yeah, there's just a million things out there, a million things out there. It's always something. And we do it at a state level, we do it at a national level, we do it at a local level. So if you want to be able to talk about it to your clients, it's best to, get involved a little bit and see what it's all about. Even if it's just a local association going to a local government relations meeting and hearing, what's going on. We had one yesterday at Orange County Realtors with Matt Roberts, and I cannot remember the new economist. His first name's Michael, but I don't remember his last name. But he is a government policy economist. And we had a really good talk with them, with them letting us know, what's on tap for NAR, what's happening with the state, the best that we possibly can. And, talking about, what the current situation is and, knowing that it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, we had a really interesting time at NAR during Trump 1.0, and I think we're going to have another interesting year at Trump 2.0 when we go to Washington, D.C., which we're doing that at the end of May, first week of June, I think. Is that when we go?
Yeah, I think we leave on the 31st of May.
Yeah. And this is when we get to see our Congress people. Actually, it's kind of cool because we do get to meet with the Congress people, go to their offices and come in and meet with them. and talk to them about the bills that are important, what we want to see done. And this year is it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting year. We really flexed our muscle back in Trump 1.0, and we did a lot of good work on behalf of the homeowners in the country. What we're hoping to be able to do this year, it's a little different up there on Capitol Hill. People are very worried about, maintaining their positions and getting primaried and various other things. So it's going to be interesting to see how productive we are, but we are fighting for the mortgage interest deduction. One thing that was interesting that I didn't even cross my mind, because they're talking about, okay, so we need to, the government needs to extend the Trump tax program that they had done back at Trump 1.0. And one of those things was removing the mortgage interest deduction, reducing it down to $10,000. And I think it works out to something about $500,000 worth of mortgage. You can, whatever it is. I don't know the exact formula because I'm not that person. But, it was
Aaron
interesting.
on the phone.
Yeah.
Aaron.
It was interesting. Yeah, Erin could tell you because I was sitting next to her.
Oh,
And
okay.
Matt Roberts was just like, okay, what's Erin going to ask me? Literally. And she would agree to that. Um, but he was going over what would happen, if they didn't extend the Trump bill. And it's like, the mortgage interest deduction would go up to $1 million versus the 500,000 that it's capped at now. And so if you have one of these higher interest rates on these higher priced homes right now, you would get to write off a heck of a lot more mortgage interest. But how does that play out in the grand scheme of, people wanting tax cuts in other realms? This is why you pay for tax cuts, stuff that, we can benefit from, we might not get, so somebody else can have something they want. So that's as political as I'm going to get right now, but it was kind of an interesting take on, so what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, for us, it probably wouldn't be that bad from a real estate standpoint if the Trump tax laws expired. However,
There's so much in that. I
there's so
mean,
much of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think part of that was the extra 20% deduction for real estate. I think it was part of that act, so that would impact us.
Yeah. But from a homeowner standpoint,
Mhm.
you know, so it was kind of interesting because there's just so much going on. There's so much going on.
When is it set to expire? Is it the end of the year? I forget.
I think
I
they
think,
have to redo it they have to get it through this year.
yeah, I
Um,
thought it was expiring at the end of the year, so they'd have to make a decision and work it out before
yeah.
then. I mean, I could be wrong. It may not be
No,
at
I
the,
think you're right. I think you're right.
so,
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. It's going to be interesting to see what our marching orders are going to be when we're in Washington, D.C. this year. What are our talking points going to be when we're meeting with the various Congress people? Are the various Congress people even going to want to meet with us? And they mentioned certain people are going to already have targets on their back. And it's interesting. Our Orange County was one area that is being looked at because nobody would, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, nobody would ever think that Orange County, out of all the congressional districts we have, that all but one are Democrat. We only have one Republican, and they're saying that Republican has a target on her back. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out.
yeah, I mean, we might get a sneak peek when we're at CAR because we do an NAR delegate meeting, if you're a director or other representative. So we might get a little bit of a sneak peek, but probably not much. We'll get more information once we're actually there in those
Yeah.
briefing meetings, which we had to get on our schedule. I don't think they've come out yet. I
Well,
start to
an
work.
interesting thing is, they could come out with something this week and it could be totally irrelevant
Well,
next
that's
week.
true. Well, yeah, even we go to NAR about a month after we go to CAR. So yeah, a lot could change in a month.
Yeah, a lot can change in a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
In fact, just, one little fun fact about yesterday, um, was there was a quarter point swing in the mortgage interest rate in one day. They went from one of the lowest rates that we've seen in a month to the highest rate we've seen in a month in one day. Wouldn't you hate to be that buyer trying to decide if you need to lock a loan right now?
That would be tough.
I had buyers that closed on the 28th of March, and I was just sitting here just going, I never found out what they actually locked in at because they waited till like the last minute to lock. And I was talking to the lender who did their loan today, and I'm like, I've been worried about, what this couple is, on their decision on what they did for the rate. And because it's like, okay, it was 6.8 something down to 6.6 to 6.5, blah, 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 and just, in the matter of a couple of weeks. And she said, don't worry, they took all of their buy down money and permanently bought down the start rate on the 7-year adjustable. So they're at 5.5.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And, they're happy with it. They're comfortable with it. And, it's a permanent buy down and they can refinance if things get better. But right now, who knows? It's a tough situation to be in. And I think we just need to kind of be cognizant of that when we're dealing with people, especially buyers, where they're like, so what do you think the mortgage market's going to do? And it's right up there with what's the stock market going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to just be, point them towards places they can be educated with reliable information. I'm going to give a shout out to my favorite app out there for all the people that want to keep up with all the mortgage wackiness, Mortgage News Daily. I'll put a link in the chat for that as well. If you don't have that on your phone, you should, because not only do they tell you what the rates are, which usually gets updated twice a day, they will also have a piece on what the rates are doing, what the rates are doing. And it's usually, pretty easily digestible too.
Yeah,
So,
it's a good app. I've been referring to it lately just to kind of keep track of where it's going because I'm intentionally not really watching news sources. I'll listen to The Economist that I talked about earlier, but other than that, that's kind of it.
yeah, I really should not watch as much news as I do. It's kind of a strange time. I will say the two apps that are getting a workout on my phone is Mortgage News Daily and the stocks. It's just like, what's happening here? Because you want to know consumer sentiment. If people, a lot of people have 401ks that are, tied to this, and they're seeing huge fluctuations in what, their values are. And, if you're trying to make a decision on, should I retire right now? Should I sell my house right now? Where am I going to go right now? Am I going to have a job next week? 401k. Yes, that's I hate to think I know what I said, but it's there's a lot of moving parts right now, and we have um, people that are, yeah, negative 401k. That's exactly where we are. Um, I met a federal employee a couple of weeks ago, and she had been hired on within the past year. Very, very bright woman. The Department of Energy was courting her for quite some time. She made the decision to leave the corporate world to go into the government world, put her condo up for sale, and then got laid off by the government. And then they realized, oh, we can't lay her off. We just got her. She's a great catch. Brought her back on. Now they're like, oh, maybe we are going to lay you off. She's trying to decide, do I keep my condo on the market in Minnesota? Do I keep the place I just bought in New York? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And, we're going to have people all over the country like this that are going to be having to make decisions on something that is highly um, what do I want to say? Volatile, highly volatile job situations right now. And I think, we just need to be cognizant that you don't know what people are going through and you don't know how their job may be tied into something. Where you have that buyer that you've been working with that said, you know what, I'm not feeling good about my job right now. I don't want to buy. Or somebody saying, you know what, I'm not feeling good about my job, but I do need to sell. It's like, so what are your options if you don't have that job? And I know I'm faced with that with a client right now. It's like, oh, I'm going to go out and get a loan. And I'm like, oh, you are? With what income? So interesting times, people, interesting times.
Yep, that it is. I think we'll see um, people who may not be affected today, things will trickle down at some point and they could be affected. So I think I think it's wise for people to be concerned and look at all their options. And, that's our job, is to provide them different different options, different scenarios, and let them make the decision that works best for them.
Absolutely. And point them towards reputable news sources if, you hear that they're getting a little off topic or something. But it is a real life thing. It is really happening to people. And, hopefully this is short-lived. Hopefully, sanity returns. I know there's people out there that think this is great. There's people out here that think that, their hair's on fire and we're all going to die. And then there's everybody in between. And we just need to be cognizant that you don't know where that person that you're talking to, where they fall in all of this. And we just need to be a little bit more sensitive and, you know, just be happy that we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay. Are you doing okay?
I'm doing okay. I'm
I'm
doing
doing
okay.
okay. Well, on that note, it is 3:28. So why don't we go ahead here and land this plane? Since speaking of planes, I got to go drive to the airport and see how overdone my corned beef is. And yes, Carla, keep it together. Yes, all of us. Let's all keep it together. And I don't know. Let us know what you think about Tuesday afternoons. We're still working on all of this, crazy stuff. With trying to get this stuff live, but they have rules. They have rules, and you don't know what those rules are until you try it. So that's my homework. I got to play with the rules. So on that note, Lori, I'm gonna have a wonderful afternoon,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. Got lots of things on my to-do list.
Me too. So on that note, we will see you all later. Take care and have yourself a wonderful day. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. We have got it actually scheduled on the Facebook group. So thank you. Thank you all for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Have a good one.
See you all later.
Bye.
Bye.